trout there. Little fish is better than no fish. Had a couple bites on the other side of that dock. Oh, there was another one. Now there's two ways I like to fish a jig head. One is throw it out there and you reel it in real slow. And the other way that I really like is to give it violent humps or jumps like that. Make that bait jump off the bottom a couple of feet at a time. Another little fella. So all I do is I throw it out there, let it go to the bottom. We're only fishing about 3.5 foot right now. And then I give it pretty, oh, there was another one. Give it pretty sharp pops like that. And what that does is, does a couple of things. One, it triggers a reaction strike whenever that thing jumps right up in front of them. And two, you got that nice fall. I thought he was better. He just hit it really good. But it also falls down in front of them. And it kind of, that triggers another shorter strike there. So another little guy. Throwing straight back into this wind with this braid after you catch a fish. Like you got them fired up a little bit up there. Too bad they're all 12 inches long. But regardless, they're still fun to catch. That one thumped it so hard. Stay over here for a second, see if there's any. Seem to be all right up in there. Came over here so I could fish that old boat dock, or that old dock over there. All you can see is the pole sticking out of the water. another 12 or 13 incher. There we go. Now the other way I like to fish this is just reel it real slow, like that. Give it a little pop every now and then, but just reel it real slow straight back to you. Now I like fishing like that whenever the fish are really choking a jig head. Just feel like they eat it better like that. But I had a couple bites that cast. We're gonna reel it like that again. There's one. Now, if you've ever fished a spinnerbait, it's kind of like what it feels whenever one hits it. Just kind of stops it. One hit that as soon as it hit the water over there. Let it go to the bottom. Start reeling it real slow. There's another little guy. There's already one on that one before it hit the bottom. Bunch of little ones. Come off. Throw it out there, let it hit the bottom. Start reeling it back real slow. Just like that. Now this will catch bigger fish too if they're around, but I just think this is a school of little guys. We're just having fun catching them. It's not every day where you can come out and catch them every cast. So I just enjoy catching fish. I'm gonna go back to my other method of hopping it up off the bottom. And that's why I like it, man. They freaking smoke it. Whenever you hop it like that, it's just a different strike. Just one of those reaction bites. Same size fish, but they just hit it harder. It's a hard thump versus like them just running up on it and trying to stop the bait. I want to talk a little bit about the jig heads and the jig head selection. Whenever you're fishing with jigs or swim baits or anything like that, anything that needs a jig head. I've mentioned it a couple of times before, but I don't think I've gone over the actual jig heads themselves. This is your traditional, probably your cheapest little jig heads that you're going to find. These guys here only have like this one little bait keeper right here. It's just a little barb right here, usually on the tie off side right up in here. These are, like I said, they're cheaper. Usually most of the hooks that they use on these, they're not going to be a very wide gap. This one's got a fairly long shank, but the gap itself isn't very wide. So, you know, I like something that's got a longer shank, a little bit wider gap in general, because the hookup ratio is usually a little bit better. So I like a combination of the two, a little bit longer shank, wider gap. This is going to be our next one. This is a goldeneye little jig head. These come in different sizes with the hook size and everything. But with this one, the hook keeper here, or the bait keeper here, you got one little collar and then you got one little barb right here. It's got a pretty decent hook on there. You can tell the difference between that hook and this hook. There's just looking at it, you can tell one looks a little bit sharper than the other, and it's true. One on the left here is sharper than the one on the right. A little bit more expensive on the left, a lot more inexpensive on the right. Next one we got a screw lock bait keeper on here. We're getting a little bit better with our hooks. Got a little bit wider gap. You can tell the difference in that gap just by looking at it right there. So definitely got a little bit bigger gap in there. I think the shank size on this one's pretty close on the shank length right there. But the big deal here is you got a little bit different angle on your hook right here. So instead of a 90-degree bend from the hook shank on up out of the jig head, you got a little bit more of an angle here. This is really good for your gliding baits, your swim bait type things, you know, like something with a paddle tail and you want to just continually reel it. The other big thing that I'm looking at here whenever I'm choosing jig heads is this bait keeper right here. So this one has a really nice bait keeper. These screw locks, they're really good. They grip onto the bait really well because it screws into the plastic itself. The only bad thing is, once this rips out of the bait a couple of times, it leaves a really big channel in there, and you basically have to either cut the bait, you know, that much of the bait off, that way it'll grip again, or you have to just completely get a new bait if it's a smaller bait, and you just got to get a new bait to put on there. So it does tear your bait up quite a bit, but it will definitely hold your bait a lot more than this guy. So this one's just going to put a little channel in there, tear your bait up, not grip very well. This one will put a bigger channel in there, but it'll grip your bait a lot better. Catch a lot more fish per bait with this guy than this one. So this is, I think, a Norton jig head here. And then we've got this guy here, which is a Berkeley Fusion jig head. So got a bigger gap, pretty good size shank there. And the bait keeper on this one, you'll notice the bait keeper has multiple collars on there. So it's got basically stacked cones with a little barb, little wire barb in there. So this really secures your bait onto the jig head quite a bit. So you put this into a bait, and in the video I was using this jig head right here. Actually, I've caught, you know, quite a few fish on there. My bait didn't even slide down. It actually holds your bait up there really secure. The other jig head that I like that would be in this category would be a Death Grip jig head. I really like them. The only negative is I have to go, you know, way out of my way to go buy them at a local bait shop. But my favorite jig head is going to come down to the Berkeley Fusion and the Death Grip jig heads. And you can see on this one has a little bit of an angle as well coming out of the jig head here. It's not a straight 90-degree like the goldeneye here or the regular H&H jig head here. You can compare the hooks to all these guys here. So we got that one there. The shank in the gap is still bigger on this Berkeley Fusion. They sell these by the size, so you can get a quarter ounce with I think a 3/0 or a 4/0 hook in them, and they have different size hook options that you can get with these guys. So that's also another nice thing about these jig heads. Most of these other ones, I think the GoldenEye, you can get some different size hooks depending on the size of the jig head you want. Same with this Norton here. Now H&H, they do have some better jig heads. Their collars still aren't very good. They're not like the Berkeley, because they're painted and they're sealed and they're very slick. So even though it does have the collars aren't very rigid like this one is. Like this one's clear cut, very well defined. The ones on the H&H that are collared, they're smooth. So you put them in there, they hold okay, but they will put a big channel in there and they don't hold up as good. The Death Grips, they have these little collars, but there's a lot more of them, and they're more stacked up on each other. So they're very small, little tight grooves, and they really hold on to a bait as well. So once you wear a bait out with one of these, though, you do have to cut the tip off, but you can catch a lot more fish with one bait with one of these jig heads versus this. Now the price jumps up once you get into these. The Death Grip isn't too bad. I think they're like $4, maybe $5 a pack. These guys here, anywhere from $4 to $6, $7 a pack for these Berkeley Fusions. I don't really care a whole lot about the color most of the time. A majority of my jig heads in my box are going to be just the lead colored here. I don't like to take away from the bait unless the water's super muddy or something, but whenever that's the case, I pretty much using a dark colored bait anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Unless I just want to add a little bit more flash. If I'm throwing for flounder or something, sometimes I'll put a more colored jig head on there. That way it just gives it a little bit more flash, a little bit more color to it, get a little bit more of a reaction strike out of it. So, but this is the jig head that I was using. I caught plenty of fish on it, still using the same bait, still have it tied on actually. And I'll catch quite a few more fish on that one bait. So in the long run, if you spend a little bit more money on your jig heads and know why you're spending a little bit more money and which ones to get, it'll save you money in the long run. So Berkeley Fusion jig heads, Death Grip jig heads, those are the ones that I would prefer.